Okay, Adelina, the first question is, what is exactly the Bourbon app? Are we talking about a cross-platform application for the students or something also? I will repeat the question. What is exactly the Bourbon app? Are we talking about a cross-platform application for the students or something also? Or something. Or something.
Okay, so the Bourbon app we want to have would be linked to our website. It would have a calendar, like it will tell you like today if an event is happening, it'll tell you what time and everything. Through the app, you'll be able to see like our videos, or it will be a link to our YouTube video and show you what's happening, like our advertisement. Through the app, you'll be able to also communicate with us, like give us feedback, tell us maybe if Handshake is coming up, and you have a suggestion. Message and give us your opinions, and maybe we can put it in the event. I don't know what also is, but.
All right. Your second question is, what methods do you plan to use to choose students who will work with you to advance communications on campus?
I will choose students, but it won't be just me, it would be the essay team we would be choosing. First we would send out email or Facebook videos, just anything to get people interested in being and working with us. And we would get a list of names, and then through the names we would see how many we need, what the budget can pay, how many are willing to help volunteering, and then based on all those things, then we would choose a team.
Okay, thank you, Adelia. Let's give her a round of applause. Iowa, your first question is, no one goes to the banquet because it is expensive. What can you do about that?
That is a Joel question. That is finances. Or David.
All right, the second part of the question is, the themes never go with the season. Holidays and are hard to match. Would you change that? Holidays are hard to match. Would you change that? The themes never go with the season. Holidays are hard to match. Would you change that?
Question, the banquet was...
I did not write the question. I don't know.
Well, the banquet was for the Christmas season, so that kind of matched the Christmas theme. But I guess I do understand your concern. I don't know. Yeah. Go to the next question.
There isn't another question. All right, thank you, Ryan. Well, then how about David? Then I will ask you the first part of her question. So, David, no one goes to the banquet because it is expensive. What can you do about that?
Well, currently, I don't know how the budget is laid out or how I might be able to change that. But next year, if I'm elected into student finance position, I will obviously try to reduce the cost so more people will be willing to go. I heard you don't know.
Okay, David, next question. Are you a good steward of your money? If yes, explain so to establish your credibility.
No, I'm willing to answer that question. Yes, I am a good steward of my money. I have been an exceptional saver since I was very little. When my parents asked me what I'm saving for, most of you guys would say a car or a new toy. I said a house. And today, I have a lot to show for it, so I think that can represent how I steward my money.
David, last question. If the executive pushes sending more than 3 people to ALA, would you allow them to send more people or allow the cost of banquet tickets to be lowered and more affordable for students, even if that means you went against the majority of the executive?
So reduce the amount of people that are going to confidence.
To reduce the price of banquet tickets. People really want to go to the banquet.
I would go with reducing the banquet tickets. Because obviously the banquet is more for you guys than a conference that we're attending to benefit the Student Association. So, and I think we've already
All right, thank you, David. So, if both the presidents want to come up for these round of questions, I have a few questions I'll be asked to both of them, and then you guys will both answer. And so, Lorenzo will answer first, Misha will answer second. One problem that CUC/Berman students have when graduating is that no one knows who we are. How do you plan to get our name across North America or even the world? Lorenzo.
Well, I believe that across North America, one thing I mentioned was that those business students who aren't getting help right now, those business students who aren't being assisted in having like a job experience or a job opportunity, that if the university and the staff on a whole actually helps these students, help us as a student body on the whole, then this can help our credibility to be out there. This can help our contacts. Everybody who has a contact, it has to be reached. So if we contact for each other, if we depend on each other, if we help each other, then I feel as if this will spread our credibility. This will spread who you know in maybe North America. This will spread who you know in a different continent as well. And obviously, we have to ensure that we're doing our best. Because if you're not doing good in school and in classes, and if you're just slacking off and you expect for someone to actually notice you, it's going to be hard. So you must ensure that first in our hearts, we want to have that change, we want to be noticed.
During this year, I focused on rebranding essay. And one of my first jobs as president this year was to create essay brochures that we took out to every single CAM meeting in Canada. And this gave an opportunity for students that attended CAM meetings throughout the summer last year to get a different perspective on what CUC represents and shows. Another thing was the website that we had, and this is the first time that Essay has had a website, and we tracked the amount of visits to it, and it was considerably, it was amazing enough to, I will work on my and it was considerably amazing enough to make sure that we will continue doing that next year. One thing that I'm going to do is work in close affiliation with marketing and enrollment. My idea with my essay team is to create Berman brochures that we're going to hand out to the hair salon, to the mall, to different stores. Because you know what? Even people in Lacombe and Red Deer don't know that the university exists here. So then how can you go around and say, I'm going to cater to India and America when people around us don't know who we are? So my number one thing is to let the people around us know who we are, and then it's going to take, it's like a domino effect. Change will come according to time. Another thing is that students are the biggest representatives of CUC and Berman. No matter how many brochures we send out, no matter how many recruiters we send out, people won't come unless they hear from fellow peers that they have had an amazing experience at Berman. So, with Essay, we're going to make sure that we give you a year that's good enough for you to talk about, even when you go home for breaks and whatever, so that people will hear you and say, hey, that's a university that I want to check out. So that is going to be my platform.
Misha, here's a question for you. About culture, what are you going to do about student athletics? Meaning, we have only teams that are club teams, but not a legit athletic program. How will you address improving our current situation?
Yesterday, I was in touch with Mr. Schaefer to talk about this very option. I'm concerned for the athletic teams, you're right. And I'm concerned about the survival of the basketball league. This is true. And so I went and asked him, hey, what does it take for us to go from ACAL to ACAC? And he said, next year, this is not possible, and here's why. It takes a minimum of $85,000 extra per year to make sure that our team goes to the next league. It also takes a minimum of $40,000 to hire a full-time coach specifically for this team. An additional budget for league fees is not feasible at this moment. And the space that we have right now at CUC, the gym, is not enough to preserve the other teams on campus. So are we at a junction where we need to decide, hey, is soccer more important? Is volleyball more important? No. But we are going to make sure that the basketball league still survives. But we're going to have to ask you to think outside the box for this. Here are some options that we're considering. We're looking at options to play in Saskatchewan, but this comes up with the options for money, and obviously money is the biggest issue. Some schools that have graduated from ACAL to ACAC might return to ACAL, so we might be able to still play in ACAL next year. Some other models to look at is playing in tournaments and championships with other Adventist universities. All of these options are being dealt with right now, and we are talking about it because we care about the athletic teams on this campus. But we're going to make sure that even importance is given to every single part about the athletics. It's not just the basketball team, not just soccer, not just volleyball. We're going to make sure that everything, every single component of the athletic department has a chance to make our school proud. Yeah. Increase pride, yes.
Lorenzo, this is a two-part question. You mentioned practicum for business majors, but how do you intend on doing so with the current financial situation of the school? A. How will you start the reimbursement budget How will you start the reimbursement budget? Where will you allocate the funds? What about science majors? Will they have practicum? What are your plans for sustainability? So the first one, you've mentioned practicum for business majors, but how do you intend on doing so with the current financial situation?
The first part of the question. When you are doing practicum for business majors, or when you're going on a job experience, personally, I don't see how that fits into you worrying much about finances when you're not being paid for that position. It's a practicum, right? So what I would suggest also is that if you're a business major and you have to go to Edmonton for that field experience, then I would also suggest that we have a budget where we can we have a budget where we can better allocate funds to both business majors and education majors, right? So now, how do I plan on allocating those funds? If the business majors and education majors would like to come together and actually host some events or actually host things where you can raise funds, that's a start. I'm not looking at this and saying, okay, because the finances aren't there,